Hello, Damien.
Evening. How we doing? Are we all right?
Yes, doing very well. And I should imagine you're doing quite well over there at the moment because viewers, Damien is actually living in the Runcorn and Hellsby constituency. And is it right to say that you were an active participant in the election, Damien?
Yeah, I've done some local canvassing for Reform UK in the Runcorn area, and we just pipped it by 6 votes.
6 votes. Absolutely incredible. Did you think you were going to win it?
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be this close, but yeah, I had little doubt that they were going to get it. The bookies, the smart money was on Reform UK. They were favourites for quite a while, and I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited because it shows, from a psychological point of view, that we can vote for other options. This constituency was only created last year, but the reform movement is strong in the area. And the Runcorn area has only ever voted Labour for at least the past 50 years. So we're talking since 1975. Runcorn itself, regardless of the constituency it was in previously, whether it be Halton, Weaver Vale, has always returned a Labour MP. Now it's not, and that's exciting. From a psychological point of view, there's a lot of people that may be disengaged or disenfranchised, thinking, "Well, why would I vote if I'm going to get a Labour MP, which is not what I want?" So, just from a psychological perspective, to see that we've got somebody now in Parliament who's already hit the ground running today on Talk TV and GB News, talking about illegal migration, the detrimental impact it's having on local communities. I'd take that over a backbench Labour MP that doesn't say anything about the subject or isn't even on TV. That's all you usually get in a red wall Labour seat in the north as a backbench MP. He's not too bright, and they just shut up and do what they're told. So it's refreshing to see our new MP, Sarah Poachin, go on and talk about the issues that we need to be talking about, which is the negative impacts of especially the unskilled migration that's been flooded into Great Britain.
Absolutely. That's a good point. And she certainly raised the profile of that area of the country in ways that another Labour time server could never have done. Now, some people say that Keir Starmer never came up there. Do you think he was just not interested, or what's your explanation for him not making an appearance?
I think it's twofold. I think, first of all, he's a very worldly globalist prime minister. He can't be bothered trifling with a single constituency up in the north, especially one that is going to be pipped to use because pipped to lose, shall I say? Sorry, because of his boxer MP that was in this seat decided to deck a constituents. He knew he was going to lose it, or he knew it was going to be very close. And many of his foot soldiers in the constituency were getting the door slammed in the face because he's just that unpopular. Now, I know Labour in Scotland is a bit more nuanced than it is in the north of England. You've got a lot of unionists in Scotland that will vote Labour to keep an SNP out, and I can see that angle from your perspective. However, in the north we don't have that separate. However, in the north we don't have that separatist angle to contend with, so there's less nuance here. But you probably have a bit more of a nuance up in Scotland with what you're dealing with the SNP.
Yes, it's a more complex situation up here in Scotland, which we can get to in a minute. Um, when you were out and about, was did Reform have like much of a presence? I know they were on the internet, their social media, Nigel Farage and so on's putting out videos every day, but like on the ground, was it visible? Did people have like Reform stuff in their windows, or could you see much of that at all?
Well, apart from my window, I've got a Reform sticker in my window. So, and every Reform member in the constituency was sent a big poster. I
Oh
was
yeah.
going to bring it on to show you, but I had a car sticker as well. There's quite a few car stickers, and there's a local presence. Out of the two horses in this race, Labour and the Reform team in Runcorn and Helsby, Reform UK was the only one that had a campaign office out of the local shopping centre, which is known as Runcorn Shopping Centre. Labour didn't bother. So it was basically a 2-horse race, and they did have a campaign office. And I've been going to local branch meetings of Reform in February, March, and April. So there is a energy and there is a desire to get something different. Even if Reform aren't perfect, I've got many criticisms of Reform UK. It's refreshing to get MPs that seem to actually be reflecting your views on TV and in Parliament. And that's something that I think Reform UK is doing, has given the voice to the people that have been voiceless. There's essentially two factions of the Labour Party. You've got the working class core vote, the red wall, and many of your Labour constituencies in Scotland would fall into that, the working class people of Great Britain. And then you've got the Islington subset represented by the likes of Stephen Kinnock and Emily Thornberry, who can tweet a picture of a St. George flag, sort of mocking people that are patriotic when they're down campaigning, and think that that's perfectly acceptable. They have disdain for the working class. So there's Labour's got a big issue, and it's basically there's disdain for their core votes, plus looking to appease the champagne socialists that seem to be running the party.
Yes, yes. Well, let's take a look at the actual results from Runcorn. And there's the Reform Party at the top there, 12,645, followed by Labour at 12,639. Incredible. Never seen something that close before. And then the Conservatives way down at 2,300, followed by the Greens at the same amount, and Liberal Democrats out of the question, really. And just a kind of gathering of very small parties there at the bottom of it. But yeah, well, that was an amazing thing, because Reform came from basically nowhere.
They did, and it's very much representative of the Brexit vote. Halton, in the Brexit referendum in 2016, did vote for Brexit. They did vote for Brexit, and Labour have done everything since the Brexit vote not to honour the Brexit and give us the Brexit that we deserve. If you remember, Keir Starmer was very much against Brexit and wanted a second referendum. And it's very much a reckoning. And what my win in my constituency shows to every single Red Wall MP, it's a shot across their bows, basically. And their voters are going to be looking for something substantial and something meaningful that's different. And that's what we can look forward to. If you look at the result there, it's very, very close. Reform done very well to put on as many votes as they did. And you've got to remember, the general election was only 10 months ago.
Yes.
And no sitting Prime Minister has won a by-election this early in a parliamentary term. And that vote is the closest vote that's been recorded since records began recording the votes in 1945.
Right. Incredible. Well, they also did very well across the rest of England. And we've got a graphic which just shows how many, not that one, this one. Let's get rid of these banners. Reform coming right in at the top there at 677, from basically nothing, I think it was nothing, to 677, making more than the Liberal Democrats, who came in at 370, Conservatives at 319, which is way down, and Labour at 98, which is down 187 seats. So really, Reform thrashed the Tories and they thrashed Labour. And that's where the two parties which their votes appear to have been coming from. Incredible performance, really. And not only that, but if we move to the next graphic here, we'll see that, what does it say? Reform UK swept to victory with 31% of the overall vote, gaining a majority in 10 council areas. Those council areas being Doncaster, which they took from Labour, and 8 councils which they took from the Tories: Derbyshire, Kent, Lancashire, Lincolnshire, North and Northamptonshire, Nottinghamshire, Staffordshire, and West Northamptonshire, and also Durham, which had no overall party majority. So that's the blue there is the Reform, the orange is the Lib Dems, and the grey is the councils that have no overall control at the moment. So you can see where they've done extremely well there. Okay.
There's a couple of things I'd like to mention about that. The first thing you need to remember is that both the Tories and Labour in Westminster voted to postpone a significant section of local elections this year.
True.
And I think they did that purposely because they wanted to prevent what's been shown here, which is Reform being the top party. And they done it in specifically in areas like Essex and the east of England, where they've got a few MPs, and they thought that if they postponed the elections locally, that they could stop what happened last week, which is headlines, Reform, largest party, which is exactly what's happened. And the second thing I'd like to counter with, or the second thing I'd like to bring up is, I've always seen local elections not as an irrelevance personally, because I've always voted in local European and UK elections. However, a lot of wannabe politicians, I think, don't take local issues seriously at council level. What I actually think is that they see it almost like a stepping stone to becoming an MP, climbing that greasy political pole. So Reform have a unique opportunity here. And what they could actually do is they could improve local services, improve local delivery of things on the ground. And if you can show that and demonstrate that they're also saving money by removing waste such as DEI initiatives where possible, and also maybe there's a lot of local initiatives in England. I don't know if it's the same up in Scotland, but in England there's a lot of local initiatives where councils will spend funding on refugees and give them like free gym access or free driving lessons and things like that, and that comes out of local council funds. So if Reform UK can put a stop to that wastage as well, and they can say, listen, this is what you're going to get when you get Reform. These are all positive signs, and these are things that they can do that they're going to have control of on a local level. And the third thing, finally, I'd like to say is they've already made a declaration that only flags that are going to be on council buildings are going to be the flag of St. George, because they won in England, and the Union Jack. Now, they have made concessions to say that the initial tweet that they put out on X didn't say that they're going to fly county flags or county regimental flags for the military, but they've considered that that will happen. And obviously, if they won elections in Wales on the local level, it will be the Welsh flag. And obviously, up in Scotland, it wouldn't be the St. George's flag. It would be the St. Andrew's flag. So obviously, there are going to be nuances and concessions. And if the King ever visited the council chambers, then obviously the royal standard would have to go up instead. So there's obviously going to be nuances and whatnot. What they mean is they're not going to have the Palestine flag. What they mean is they're not going to have the trans flag. What they mean is they're not going to have the Ukraine flag on council buildings. That's what they mean. Because flags are meant to unite, not divide. So that's the whole point of a flag. Now, when you've got a Palestine flag, that's divisive, because straight away you're playing Palestine off against Israel.
Well, that's right. I think in these councils, I mean, how the flag flying is just a reflection on who's making up the council. You know, if you've got a council made up of people who are highly sympathetic to a particular social or international issue, then you very often get the flag run up the flagpole for certain days. But it's good to know that at least in these councils, there's going to be a significant majority, hopefully, of councillors who really just put the emphasis, as you say, on the British heritage, whatever that may be, and however that may be broken down.
They've also rejected they were meant to be getting the DEI training as part of their induction as new councillors, and they've all rejected it. They've all been told to reject it and not take the training, which is quite funny.
That is funny, and that's good. I think the main thing facing these new councillors is just going to be learning the role, because most of these people, I should imagine, have never really even stepped inside a county chamber before. And so they're going to be quite vulnerable in that way. And of course, the media is going to be watching them like a hawk.
They're going to be very
And
hawkish because they're used to basically having Labour and Tory councillors in, and they just receive the diktats from central government upon high, and they just basically shut up and do what they're told.
yes,
Now, by
and
throwing a third party into the mix, where they've got overall control on all of these councils, they're going to get pushed back to central government, which they've never had.
yeah, yeah. Because in these councils, like if you had some Labour guy or Tory guy or whatever that did something wrong, you never know about it. But if a single Reform councillor puts a foot out of step, makes a mistake with the accounts, does something wrong on a Friday night or
Yeah.
whatever, the world is going to know about it. And the world's going to know about it probably forevermore. It'll be written into the history books. You know, that's the way that they deal with these things, is that they shine the light to expose every single person. That's as far as parties that they don't like are concerned. They really just go overboard on trying to smear, essentially, that particular person. So they are going to be up against it. So I wish them the very best.
The very good thing about winning all of these councils, and the very good thing is, it delivers a ground game for Reform UK. It delivers foot soldiers on the ground in all of these areas to campaign for more elections. When the general elections come up in a few years, there's going to be a ground game of councillors and activists and leafleters and everyone like that in those areas. And what you remember is that these are only some of the local council elections. There's going to be more council elections next year. Like my council, which is Halton Borough Council, which covers Runcorn and Widnes, that's up for it next year. And there's going to be more mayoralties. And then obviously you've got the Senate, and you've also got Holyrood elections next year as well. So,
well, let's talk about these Holyrood elections, because an amazing piece of news came out today. There's been a new poll by Survation, and they have discovered, if you could believe this, and I couldn't really believe it, but it's certainly what the polling is saying, is that Reform are going to be not the fourth or third biggest party in Holyrood, but on current trends, the second biggest party in Holyrood, with more seats than Labour, more seats than the Tories, and more seats than the Lib Dems. And that's how it breaks down at the moment, according to the poll that came out today. The SNP would have 58 seats, Reform would have 21, Labour would have 18, Conservatives would have 13, Lib Dems 10, and Greens 8. And that's an extraordinary thing. Now, to win overall control, SNP would need 65 votes, 65 seats rather. They've got 58 there, but if they joined with the Greens in a coalition, then they'd have 66 seats, which would give the coalition overall control. Okay.
but to get the Reform UK as the official opposition in your assembly is a remarkable achievement. And I think I mentioned this earlier this year on my channel, that they are pegged to do exceptionally well. Maybe not as well as England, but don't write them off. And that you've got to remember that your elections aren't for another year or so. What's going to happen in the next year? They're going to go from strength to strength. I said this as well. If I've already been over to the neighbouring constituency next to mine's Runcorn and Halsby, and the neighbouring constituency over the water on the other side of the River Mersey is Widnes and Halewood. And there's people in that area that are saying that we want a bit of what you've got in Runcorn, which is a Reform UK MP. So it's going to be similar across the board. It's going to be similar to Scotland and England. There's going to be a lot of like-minded people in Scotland. They're going to be looking down at England and say, they're not a flash in the pan. It is possible. If you vote Reform, you are going to get Reform. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the 21, I think that could easily be 30 by this time next year. Easily, maybe 35.
Well, it's almost like Reform would be doing better in Scotland than they're doing in England, because remember, Scotland is a five-party system. Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, as SNP, Labour, Lib Dems, Tories and Greens, 5 major parties in Scotland. In England, you've really only got the 3, Tories, Labour and Lib Dems. So if reform break through in a 5-party system, it's almost like they're doing better in a way than they're doing in England. If you see my point here. And indeed, John Curtis said in yesterday's National, can't actually see it there, he says, Scottish Labour more vulnerable to reform. And he talks about here, he said, reform's support in Scotland is, quote, essentially concentrated among those people who support the union, adding, quote, reform are therefore primarily taking votes off both the Conservatives and Labour. Indeed, Labour seem to be more vulnerable to reform north of the border than south of the border. So that's very interesting. And he added, quote, at the moment, there seems little prospect of any of the other unionist leaders being in position to try to create an administration either with or without reform. In other words, they're going to have to work with reform, whether they like reform or not at the moment. And that polling, again, as you say, it's probably only going to go one way, and that's up.
But here's the thing as well, what you need to factor in as well is, say, for example, I still predict, okay, my prediction is that they are going to win the Senate, they are going to win the Welsh Parliament or the Welsh Assembly next year. They will pip it, and they will become the opposition to the SNP in Scotland.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's what I personally think is going to happen in the devolved administrations. They're going to pip the Senate in Wales and Cardiff.
Wow.
And they are going to become the opposition to the SNP in Scotland.
That's incredible if they did those two things.
If you can consolidate that with maybe another 10 county councils in England before the next general election, that's a heck of a ground game for the next general election in 2028, 2029, compared to the decimation of the Tories and Labour.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That can only be a good thing.
It would be amazing. I mean, if they won the Senate, that would just be incredible. But I think they'll do extremely well in the Senate, one way or the other. There's no question they will do well. To win it would be incredible, though.
Well, to build a party like this from the ground up and not take it for granted. Say, for example, they make a success of one of these councils in England this year, the 10 councils that they've got overall control of. They can go to the voters in Wales and say, well, we're tried and tested now. With one of these councils in England, you're getting more for your money. The immigrants are getting less, if nothing. And then they can go to the voters in Wales and say, listen, this is what you're going to get with Reform UK. We get the Senate.
Yes.
And they can use that argument as well to like-minded voters up in Scotland as well.
Yes. Big thanks to Bugsy Malone here, who sent in a $4.99 super chat. He says, I'd shut the IKEA flat pack fake parliament in Edinburgh down if I could. And Bugsy, I think there's lots of people who would definitely agree with you on that. So shout out to Bugsy there. Bugsy was watching on TikTok. We ended the stream, or we're still chatting on the stream, but viewers can't see the video interview. And so he came over to YouTube and he's given us a $4.99 super chat. Thanks, Bugsy. You're the man.
I want to be 100% clear on this. I'm pro-union. To me, it's not even a union. The United Kingdom is the country. So it really grinds my gears when people say, look at the act of union, look at this political agreement between Scotland and England. It's not that. It literally fused the two countries together into a single thing. So when people say, the way I see the UK is it's one United Kingdom with 3 separate jurisdictions. England and Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. If you look at the United States, they're 50 states and they've got 50 different legal systems and 50 different jurisdictions. It's quite similar. Obviously, the devolution deal in the United Kingdom is different because we're not a federalised state. It's much more. A lot of people don't realise how small Britain is. We are very tiny.
Oh yeah.
If you look at Britain or the United Kingdom as a landmass, we could fit inside the state of Texas.
Oh, several times. Several times, I think we could fit inside. You're right. Well, regarding Holyrood next year, which is exactly a year today, it's the 7th of May 2026, we're going to get an inkling because on the 7th of June coming up, there is a by-election, a Scottish parliamentary by-election, 5th of June coming up at the Hamilton, Lark Hall and Stonehouse Holyrood constituency. And it's going to be by first past the post, and we'll have an idea of how they do there. And I think we've got the Hamilton from last time. This is at the 2021 Scottish parliamentary election. Now, at the at the constituency, which are the only results here that we're interested in. So we're only looking at SNP, Labour, Conservative, and Liberal Democrats, and we're only looking at the first three columns there. SNP got 46%, Labour got 33%, Conservative 17.5%, and Lib Dems were completely out of the running at just around 3%. Now, if Reform are polling at 20%, let's say they're polling even at 15%, then they're going to come third. And there is a because they'll knock the Conservatives out. The Conservatives will lose votes to Reform. So Reform are going to come straight in there at number 3, which would be a victory in itself. But there's a possibility they could actually come in at number 2 if Labour lose a lot of votes and their 33% goes right down to 25%. The Conservatives lose 5%. I mean, you're looking at Reform perhaps even pipping Labour into second place, which again would be a national, as in British national earthquake politically, and would bode extremely well for Reform as far as next year is concerned. So that's an interesting by-election that's coming up on the 5th of June, just less than a month away now. So that's something to look forward to. But I would put my money on Reform coming third, possibly second.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an exciting time, I would say, in British politics in general.
Yes.
So for the life of me, Alistair, I really cannot understand how popular the SNP are in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't. For my money, it's disgruntled Scottish people that just want to troll Westminster.
Yes.
Because if you look at any of the substance behind the rhetoric, there's just nothing there at all. No. The Emperor has no clothes. And I don't say that because Scotland can't be separate from the UK. I say that because it shouldn't be separate from the UK. From a political point of view, it'd be like someone cutting off my arm. I don't really understand what I would gain from it. And again, as you know, people who are unionists in England get told by people in Scotland, shut up, you're English, your voice doesn't matter, it's nothing to do with you. That's exactly the type of divisiveness that I will always reject. I would welcome anybody to talk about British politics anywhere in the UK, from the tippy top of Cornwall all the way up to the Shetland Islands. It's all the same. And
absolutely agree.
And just because I can't vote locally for Shetland councillors, that doesn't mean I don't care about Shetland. And I care as much about Shetland as I do about Cornwall. It's all the same thing.
That's the attitude that we like to hear, Damien. Absolutely. Well, look, we've had a good chat there. Folks, please, if you're on YouTube, give Damien a follow. He's at youtube.com/at Cheshire Cat Musings, all one word. Damien's putting out content every day now. He's got a good number of people following him. All his videos get lots of views, I should say. Lots of views, thousands of views. Does very well there. So please give Damien a follow. And Damien, we'll have you back on. Thanks very much for your insight. Great to have a man in the field at this particular time, and you've been a great friend of the show. So thanks very much, and I'd love to come back onto your show as well at any time that you'd like to have us.
Well, not a problem. Thank you for being a gracious host. Thank you for allowing me on, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Great stuff. Okay, Damien. Good night.
Have a good evening.